Coming up on Tech News Today, Steve Sinowski denies his fiefdom. Also, Bradley bashes Microsoft, and Facebook's just trying to help a user out. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, November 15th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by MailRoute, email filtering in the cloud for companies and resellers of any size. MailRoute offers live support and one-click sign-up. For free Postini migration and 10% off the life of your account, visit mailroute.net, click the sign-up button, and enter the promo code TNT. And by the new Squarespace. Squarespace introduces a new content management system, making it faster and easier to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. Plus more than 50 new features, including mobile responsive designs. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT11. And by Ford, featuring Available Sync. Now you can control your media player with simple voice commands. Enjoy your drive while you easily search and listen to your favorite songs. Check it out on the 2012 Ford Focus and at Ford.com/technology. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting each day with the top 10 stories of the day in the news fuse. Steven Sinowski, formerly of Microsoft, loves to write long explanations on the internet. He loved it when he was blogging endlessly about Windows 8, and nothing has changed now that he's left Microsoft. In comments on retired Microsoft engineer Hal Berenson's blog, Sinowski denied that he pushed to take over Windows Phone and said it's, quote, far better to collaborate. Take that, people saying he doesn't collaborate. Steve Ballmer had only nice things to say about Sinowski at a talk with LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman at the Churchill Club.
Oh, but Ballmer had some choice words for Microsoft's two biggest mobile rivals at that very same interview last night. He called the Android ecosystem wild, uncontrolled, and susceptible to malware.
I want to party with Android.
Called the Apple ecosystem high-priced and highly controlled, and that iPhones cost upwards of $1,000 internationally. Ballmer says Microsoft has done products right and is working very closely with developers, unlike his counterparts at Apple and Google. Well, what?
The tablets are in the mail. The Kindle Fire HD 8.9 is shipping starting today, but just the Wi-Fi only model. The LTE version is coming next week on November 20th. Go forth and enjoy your Amazon content on that glorious 1920 by 1200 display. So pretty.
Israel is using internet services like Twitter, Facebook, and Flickr to tell its side of the current conflict with Hamas in Gaza. YouTube briefly removed a video posted by Israeli military showing a pinpoint strike that killed Hamas military leader Ahmed al-Jabari. A YouTube spokesman told All Things D the video was removed mistakenly and was quickly reinstated.
2 weeks ago, a NASA employee's laptop containing personally identifiable information was stolen from inside a car. And now there's some word that agency's workers are at risk of identity theft. The laptop's hard drive wasn't encrypted, you see, and neither were the sensitive documents within it. It's not the first time this sort of thing has happened either. NASA Inspector General Paul Martin told Congress earlier this year that an estimated 48 laptops and mobile devices had been lost or stolen between April 2009 and April 2011, and that only 1% of the agency devices had encryption.
They should just attach these giant devices with giant wooden blocks, library keys.
Everything's confusing today.
Texas Instruments announced it's cutting 1,700 jobs worldwide to save money. The move is part of a larger plan for TI to leave the smartphone processor manufacturing business. The company says it's going to focus its processors on embedded markets, and that requires fewer resources, so fewer people.
Todd Bradley had some blunt things to say about Microsoft's Surface RT tablets when explaining HP's strategy in personal computing for the coming year. Bradley is Executive Vice President of HP's Printing and Personal Systems Organization and told SiteWorld's Matt Rossoff he considered the Surface, quote, hardly competition and called it, quote, slow and a little kludgy. HP intends to focus on enterprise tablets until next year.
Samsung's got its own version of a yoga, sort of. The company may start mass production on bendable smartphones that kick and stretch. One of its subsidiaries, Samsung Display, is in the last stage of development of flexible AMOLED displays, which are expected to be released in the first half of next year, said a person familiar with the situation to the Wall Street Journal. Bendable displays are practically unbreakable and, of course, open the door to creation of all types of new shapes of smartphone. Kicking in yoga.
And can make a
Downward
pin
facing
or a brooch.
smartphone.
Faster Wi-Fi is coming, my friends. A group from NC State University will release a paper shortly detailing a way to boost Wi-Fi data throughput, they say, by up to 700%. The technology, called Wi-Fox, has already made their local test network 4 times faster. The trick is assigning priority access to prevent traffic jams. Lead author Arpit Gupta says Wi-Fox could work on existing Wi-Fi networks with just a software upgrade.
If you've got an LG G2 smart TV, that's right, you'll have OnLive built into your Google TV experience. That means you'll be able to play games on your LG without needing a separate box. The LG G2 is available in 2 versions, a $1,700 47-inch television and a $2,300 54.6-inch model. OnLive will also come pre-installed on all new LG Google TVs.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by MailRoute. Does your company want maximum no spam? Who doesn't? You can get it by starting with MailRoute. They take all the spam out. You just do a little MX record tweak. All the mail goes to MailRoute. They take out the spam. They send you all the good mail. And in fact, if you're a Postini user and you're looking to migrate to another email filtering service, you should check out MailRoute. They offer live support, one-click sign-up, and Postini and MailRoute users receive email protection free of charge for the remainder of their Postini contract. MailRoute will even match your current Postini pricing. It's a no-brainer to switch from Postini to MailRoute for free. And customer support is their key. Automatically generated. You'll receive a call back within the hour, 24 hours, 7 days a week. I've used it on my email addresses, and it really does take out the spam. I haven't experienced any false positives yet that I know of, and they do allow you to go in and check. And I've gotten all of the appropriate emails that I should get to that inbox. So try it for free. Visit mailroute.net, click the sign up button, and enter the promo code TNT to start your 15-day free trial and get 10% off the life of your account. No credit card required for that free trial either. That's mailroute.net, MAILROUTE.net. Click the sign up button and enter the promo code TNT. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, let's bring in Dan Patterson to join us from CodePoint and the internet and participating in a Movember, I see. Looks very good.
Well, let's call that participation. I call it an awesome mustache.
It is either and both. So let's start off with that Sinowski reaction.
Well,
a little unusual for an executive to do that.
His reaction wasn't as long as his Windows blog post.
That's a
in
very
all
good
fairness,
point.
it was a comment in a post. It was Hal Berenson's blog post that made Steven Sinowski actually respond. The post was entitled "Live Long and Prosper, Steve Sy," and he had a bunch of quotes saying Steven had apparently lost recent battles to bring both Windows Phone and the developer division under his control. Now, Berenson says he thinks that Sinowski didn't get control of Windows Phone and the developer division because if that happened, most of the top 2 to 3 levels of leadership would have quit. So the big shift would have happened if Sinowski got what he wanted. So Sinowski actually wrote on the post, and he, as a comment, he denies initiating discussions. He said that no one approached him to manage Windows Phone or developer division. He also says, he really carefully worded this. He said the current state of organization is a practical working model, and he's for collaboration within the organization rather than disrupting it unless it is on a product cycle boundary and far better to plan and execute together. Okay, so that's really carefully worded. Now, the murmurs are saying power struggle. Sinowski's denying it, even publicly comments on it. What do you think the real story is, Dan?
Well, the real story, I think, is the one that's fun to speculate on, and that's, the specifics of. I think we need an infographic made by Gina Smith to kind of understand who said what to whom about what. But I think the real story is that this may betray some systemic cracks in Microsoft's bureaucracy. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said this language is very carefully worded. And parsing that means, are we reading into things? Usually these spats happen interdepartmentally, internally, and it's almost unheard of to see stuff like this leak out. Seeing these types of personal spats publicly, I don't. Does this mean Ballmer's Microsoft is cracking, or does it mean that I don't know what it means, but it seems like there's a larger systemic conversation to be had about the state of Microsoft management.
I look at this and I say, my immediate reaction is he said, I wouldn't have taken Windows Phone in because everyone would have quit. That's just self-awareness. It doesn't mean that he was a nice guy or that he was well-liked. And I think the upshot here is you don't make these kind of public comments after you leave, usually in a high-profile position like this, because everyone overparses everything you say.
Well, the thing is, does it really matter what Sinowski says at this point anyway, since he's out of Microsoft? I mean, why is he bothering to publicly say anything when he doesn't have to? I mean, I know he likes to write, he likes to talk apparently, but why bother even saying anything to anybody at this point?
Well, I think because he's worried that he's being painted as somebody who can't work with other people and was trying to do something to Microsoft that other executives were like, no, this is a bad idea. You're out of here. I mean, he doesn't want to be that guy who, even though he's smart and did a lot for the organization, that another company is going to look at him and say, oh, but he's just going to be a nightmare and we don't need that kind of liability. It's he's trying to protect his personal brand.
He anticipated it in his internal email that he sent out.
He truly can't help himself.
Yeah.
When you get into commenting on other people's blogs that might have something a little,
he's got nothing to do.
A little unflattering to say about you, it's like you just need to step away.
Yeah. All right, speaking of parsing, let's talk about HP's Todd Bradley in an interview with IDG Enterprise, Executive Vice President of HP's Printing and Personal Systems and former Palm CEO, if you recall. Todd Bradley called the Surface hardly competition. Now, he was responding to a direct question, do you think that Surface is a threat to your market share? He's like, it's hardly competition. It tends to be slow and a little kludgy as you use it. It's expensive. Holistically, the press has made a bigger deal out of the Surface than what the world has chosen to believe. Now, a lot of people are looking at this as him bashing Microsoft Surface. I look at it as him saying it's not a big deal. It's a restricted market. You can't really get it in a whole lot of places. It's not a threat to us. We're not focused on that yet anyway. We're focused on the enterprise. We have the ElitePad 900 coming out. And he said, we're not entering the consumer tablet fray anytime soon. We'll be doing something next year, but you won't see a consumer tablet from HP before Christmas. You'll see convertibles that are focused on how you use the device, keyboard/clamshell. Now, it's fun to want to jump on Todd Bradley as like, oh, so the guy, who couldn't make a tablet work at HP with the Palm tablet is the guy bashing Microsoft. Do you think that that's actually what he's doing, Iyaz?
I think he's just doing the smart thing to make sure that the investors aren't freaking out about HP. Microsoft entering the hardware world for PCs scare a lot of people, and HP is a long-running partner of Microsoft. So they have to say something like, okay, our systems are better. We're not worried about it. And the funny thing is, this kludgy design he's talking about, it seems to be the approach that every manufacturer is taking with the hybrid style notebook, laptop hybrid thing. So I'm not sure what exactly HP is going to do other than the transformer model where they just rip the screen off. But
what does kludgy mean? Does that mean it's just badly? What does that mean?
Just hard.
Is that it clunky,
really well.
or is this euphemistic jargon?
I as a person who's been using the Microsoft Surface on and off, not on and on, I think I know what I would mean if I said kludgy, which is sometimes you're working along and it feels like you're in Windows on a regular laptop and you're like, this is amazing, I'm on a tablet, and then it gets laggy or something doesn't work quite
Somebody
right.
in a chat said wonky might be a good synonym for kludgy.
Now we're parsing.
I thought kludgy meant more like a bunch of solutions that don't necessarily work together and just kind of smacking them together. You're like, okay, well, this refrigerator has a TV in it and it's got an ice maker. That's really great. And it floats. Like, okay, but does it do anything
I tend to agree with Todd Bradley a little bit. I think it is a little kludgy.
Yeah. Well, it is also the most popular single device running Windows 8 RT, according to AdDuplex, 11% of the market. Now, granted, HP is the largest brand of Windows 8 devices with 17%, so they're not doing something wrong either. Go ahead, Dan. What were you going to say?
Oh, this language just feels exactly like Iyaz said. This is defensive spin, and it really feels like, guys, we're on a different track. It feels like he's talking internally and he's speaking to his investors, and that the public isn't the first audience for these statements.
He also, just to finish up on Bradley's comments, this is a good interview to read, by the way. On the death of the PC, he said, "You guys have been writing about how the PC has been dead for 20 years. You and your colleagues have. Desktops are going to morph depending on where you are." He talks about all-in-ones, talks about HP's strategy for all-in-ones. He talks about how China is the big market. But, of course, it's not in HP's best interests to allow that the PC is going to die in any way. We've been getting a lot of talk about Facebook and their like pages. We talked about Mark Cuban already. What's new today? Are they giving people some breathing space?
Well, they're probably giving Mark Cuban something to complain about all over again. Facebook, in fact, kind of right after our show yesterday, rolled out a new feature where you can browse your news feed by page only. So if you're the kind of person who's like, I follow pages, there's pages that I like, that's all fine and good, but there's just too much of it in my news feed, it's just become a bunch of noise. Facebook is trying to cut down on you saying, I would like to block this, hide the story, or mark it as spam because of that. Instead, someone like me who follows Boo the dog and Oscar the blind kitten on Facebook can now just browse all of that content on my page only feed. Now, what's interesting about it is I was like, does that mean it just never shows up in my news feed? No, it still will if there's enough engagement on the post to deem it worthy for me to see, because the algorithm says if it's popular enough, I probably still do want to see it, but I will see less of them.
It's got a higher bar, in other words, to
Yes.
make it into your news feed.
Exactly. And the idea is, hey, listen, there are a lot of people who want to follow brands, and now you can do that separately from what you might consider family and friends and the rest of Facebook, rather than putting it all together and Facebook saying, it's going to turn off people because of this. In fact, there were some polls that came out earlier this year, a poll of about 2,000 Facebook users in the UK, and then another Reuters Ipsos poll that came to pretty much the same conclusion, that respondents said, yeah, we don't have a problem liking Facebook pages, but then what happens is we see too much in our newsfeed and then we end up hiding them, and that just defeats the entire purpose. Facebook doesn't want people to come to that conclusion. Go ahead, Dan.
Sarah, do you know if Facebook has been at all transparent about the mechanics of EdgeRank? I don't feel like this is something I've seen or encountered anywhere, but I wonder if exposing some of these, EdgeRank does this because of this, could kind of circumvent, without giving away all of the secret sauce, if it could circumvent some of this criticism.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Facebook has said publicly is, in no way are we trying to bury promotional posts. We are giving brands different options in order to surface those posts if they think that they're worthy to people who have already liked the page monetarily, but that they're not artificially suppressing links that I should be seeing. Facebook is not in the business of saying to brands, well, you used to get a 50% click-through rate, and now you get a 10% click-through rate. That's just part of the algorithm that's supposed to help the users, the millions and millions of users on Facebook are the ones that Facebook cares about. They don't want us to go away.
The very interesting thing is in the early days of Google, we heard a ton about the page rank, and that we can't tell you exactly how this works, but we can tell you that if you're an advertiser, your advertisements will appear here at the top of the search results, and they'll be marked, and then here in the sidebar. And I understand that putting sponsored on something that appears in your newsfeed is proper disclosure, but I feel like Facebook could take a page out of the early Google book and say, look, this is what differentiates between an advertisement and where this content will show up, and these are the types of clicks that you can expect if you pay. And the news feed is like a search result. It's sacrosanct, and we won't adjust that one way or the other. And if you build that trust equity with your users and say, and if they are able to expect advertisements appear in this context and won't ever be, monkeyed with, I feel like they could just head off all of this criticism at the pass.
My feeling looking at this is that they haven't dealt with the fallout of changing the way everything works with timeline. When they made that news feed start pouring all over your main page, it took a while for people to get used to it, decide how they were going to react to it, and that's what it sounds like they're trying to say, is people started getting tired of seeing things and hiding them, and they realized our like system is broken and we need to fix it. So I'm not sure they could do that yet, Dan. I'm not sure that they could accurately tell people this is what we expect to happen, or at least maybe they're getting close to that, but they haven't been up till now.
I think they should have done it ages ago, and prior to, like complaining about Facebook changes is silly, but saying this is what will happen when a change takes effect could help them from getting into this problem in the first place. I agree. I don't think that they can do that anymore.
All right, let's take a quick break and thank one of our sponsors for today's show, Ford, featuring Sync's versatile entertainment features such as browsing. You can browse your music collection by genre, album, artist, playlist, or song title. Playlists. Sync allows voice-activated control of your media player. It'll even play a list of music you're in the mood for with the Play Similar Music voice command. And you can listen to your entertainment on most any device. Voice control your music no matter how it's stored. You can do Bluetooth streaming or a USB drive plugged in or an MP3 player plugged in. iTunes tagging lets you not worry about trying to remember a song. You just tell it to be tagged and it's saved for you to look at later, and then you can buy it on iTunes once you're safely off the road. Best of all, Ford offers Sync on every 2012 and 2013 Ford vehicle sold in the U.S., including the 2012 Ford Focus. You can learn more about this and all the other technologies Ford is into. They're always working on something. Those guys are engineers. They love this stuff. So check it out at Ford.com/technology. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, All Things D has a story up that there's blood in the water for Google and the Federal Trade Commission. There's sharks and chum and all kinds of great metaphors here. Liz Gaines has the article saying that a person familiar with the probe, the FTC probe, that has been going on for about 18 months now, said, quote, "There's now blood in the water. All these people who have wanted to kill Google, this is their chance. They will never have a better opportunity than the next 30 days. FTC Chairman John Leibowitz, by all accounts, is expected to be leaving soon, and he apparently told Google there will be a vote tomorrow, Friday, on whether to investigate Google formally or not. They've hired Beth Wilkinson as litigator. She's a formidable litigator. She handled the Timothy McVeigh case back in the day. Here are the 4 things that Gaines suspects they might bring as charges against Google in any kind of antitrust case here. So let's hear what you guys think of these. Number 1, exclusive search deals on web portals, publications, and phones, so something like Firefox or on Android phones. Exclusivity in search advertising APIs. This has been a big controversy. Google says you can't share information between ad systems. Number 3, the one we've heard a lot of, which is discrimination against vertical search engines by preferring Google services over other search engines, particularly with travel, or scraping those search engines' results without giving them proper credit. And number 4, Android policies on search exclusivity in partner phones. So if HTC, Samsung, etc., has a phone, Google says, yeah, you can only use Google search. Let's start with you. What do you think? What do you think the chances are that one or more of these is going to stick, that the FTC is going to go after Google here?
I think the exclusive deals might be the biggest problem for Google, because they don't necessarily need to have a true monopoly for that to be a big issue. That could be somewhat anti-competitive. But as for its all vertical competitors thing, like the fact that Google prefers its own data, things that they've bought, services like the flight service, is it ITA? Yeah. That's what they bought. There's a reason why they bought it, and why they bought Zagat. It's because these were the best, and they were probably showing up at the top of Google anyway. So I don't think that this is going to reach the level of Microsoft antitrust. I think this is going to be a little easier for Google to get through, and probably not get as messed up as Microsoft was back in the 90s.
Dan, what do you think? Do you agree with Iyaz? Are these going to stick?
I think there's a hubris that existed in Microsoft during the 1990s that isn't the same. I don't want to say Google doesn't have arrogance or hubris.
They definitely have some hubris, but yeah, maybe it's different.
Yeah, right. And I think it's just different, and that they're probably smart enough to have learned from Microsoft's mistakes in the 90s. Now, having said that, only anecdotally, this is not based on any research, but my friends in Washington who work in and around similar stuff all expected Google to be broken up a long time ago. They're not techies though, and I wonder if Google can't silo. I don't know. I have no idea. I think that they're smart enough to stay out of this and to keep their products not quite as integrated.
Sarah, how do you see this? Do you think Google and Microsoft are comparable, the Microsoft of the 90s that faced antitrust charges?
I mean, there's certainly comparisons to be drawn between the two. I mean, when it comes to something like search exclusivity in partner phones, I mean, okay, I don't want to say nobody prefers any other search engine to Google, but it's like Google could easily just say, sure, yeah, here are 3 other options, not a problem. I just don't think that that's really going to hurt Google at all. I think some of the stuff that Google could bend to pretty easily, give people more options. it's unlikely that a lot of people will use those options, but it gets the FTC off their back.
They might as well, but they have been resistant to that. They've had lots of meetings with the FTC, and they have been resistant to any kind of removal of these sort of exclusives. Some of the remedies proposed by Gaines would be no more exclusives, or possibly separate verticals from core search. So if they have an ITA type acquisition, they would have a travel Google that would have to be separate from the core search engine, and take a Google search back to the old days where it would be, less feature filled, I suppose. Iyaz, you're making a face.
Well, first I was trying to figure out if Chrome allows you to have a choice when you actually install it. I think it does. You have 3 choices for your search engine by default.
Well, then that's not a problem.
Right. So I'm saying they can offer solutions for Android. Let's say if that was the case.
Well, technically, sure. Yeah.
Right, I'm just saying I don't think Google has anything to fear when it comes to that,
well,
because I don't know who's going to
that's-
pick the other ones. When it comes to the idea of breaking up Google into little separate places, travel.google.com, whatever, like that seems like that concept of let's pre-install Navigator on Windows. Like that's not the solution. That's just a ridiculous knee-jerk reaction, as opposed to switch your search engine. If you don't like Google, go somewhere else.
A lot of this stuff is so arbitrary and really does come down to when the federal government gets involved and the prerogatives of the administration, and what, speculating about, how Google would get broken up could change any day depending who is in charge of what and when an investigation actually happens. I just don't think that, I don't expect to see this in the next 4 years.
Let's talk about a partnership I did not expect to see in any way. Flipboard and iBooks.
Yes, I saw the story.
Kind of makes sense, I guess.
Flipboard and Apple are teaming up, and there's a new Flipboard books category available for iPhone and iPad users. And it's going to basically be a catalog for the iBook store. So you're going to have a publisher description, a link, cover art, and when you click on one of those, it takes you directly to the bookstore. So the Flipboard's about, they said to the Next Web, it's like browsing a bookstore in Flipboard with an emphasis on discovery. If you've ever tried to use the iBook store or any Apple storefront, it can be pretty hard to find anything. Is this kind of partnership and presentation going to get people to use and buy iBooks, Dan, or do you think that this is just Apple reaching out to us, actually a relatively small fish out there?
I think this is a really cool partnership, but I think Amazon won because they were able to put that app anywhere, right? The reason I don't, and I think a lot of people don't invest money into iBooks, is because it's device centric, and if and when I feel like reading on a different device, I simply cannot port my library over, and that's huge. Having said that, I think that this is a fantastic feature, and as an iOS user, this probably will spur me to at least investigate a little further than I already have. But will it retain me, and will it expand my content purchasing habits in the iOS ecosphere when it comes to books? No.
Sarah, do you think that this kind of way to discover books is a better way to go than the iTunes store, all these other different stores? Because it seems like just flipping through a catalog, it feels almost like natural.
Well, it's not replacing anything, right? So this is just, it sounds to me like Apple's saying, Flipboard is this really cool, respected company, and we'd like people to be browsing the iBook store, so why not team up, see how it sticks? And Flipboard, on the other hand, gets... I think this is a very interesting partnership. It's almost as if the two companies would love to work more deeply together, and this is the first step. Flipboard is in a little bit of a precarious situation now that Twitter's API policies are possibly going to be affecting it down the road.
That's a very good point.
A big part of Flipboard is pulling from Twitter feeds. If that goes away, Flipboard doesn't go away, but it really has to sort of pivot on its core strategy. Buy Flipboard, Apple. Just do it.
I think that's where a lot of people's heads are at, looking at this. Like, wait a minute, are you just gonna go and acquire?
I love the experiment aspect of this, and I do think that Flipboard is a great way to browse stuff.
Tom, what do you think about
They're
Apple?
a cute couple.
They are.
What do you think about Apple working with Flipboard? That seems like it's like, I almost want to say beneath them. Apple doesn't usually go out and hey, let's partner with you, little guy. We're just going to buy you usually, and we're just going to tear you apart. This seems a little
they're
unusual.
smitten, right? Yeah, they just love the looks of that little Flipboard over there. And I think you're all right. I think you've covered all the big points, which is it is a nice way to browse, and Apple likes nice ways to browse. It is unusual. You're absolutely right for Apple to say, you know what, we're going to have a second way for you to browse our interface. That's actually one of the terms of the developer agreement, right? You can't mimic our functionality, but in this case, they're like, you can.
Do it better,
You're
please.
cool enough. Let's finish up with a fight over the ability to haul yourself around.
Or get a ride somewhere.
Let's try not to curse there.
The California Public Utilities Commission, the CPUC, is going after several ride-sharing services. Uber, because everybody goes after Uber, but also services Lyft and Sidecar, which actually operate different than Uber. Uber actually works with charter party characters, and then they're sort of a middleman between those drivers and people like me who want to get a taxi type service using my smartphone. Lyft and Sidecar are actually services where if Iyaz has a car, he feels like, I have like 3 hours and I'm just not really doing anything. I've got time. I can actually sort of hire him to get me from point A to point B. So it's sort of like a community taxi service. But both Sidecar and Lyft say they've received fines of $20,000 for operating unlicensed charter party businesses by the CPUC Enforcement Division, because that's what the CPUC deems them as. But they say, we're not charter parties. We don't have a fleet. We don't employ these people. We're just connecting drivers with rides, and we're helping handle the payment infrastructure on the back end. Sidecar CEO told TechCrunch, this is a lot like when the internet didn't fall into existing phone or newspaper regulations back in the day. Remember when everybody was all up in arms because the internet didn't work the same way? He says, the ability to know your location with a supercomputer in your pocket is utterly transforming transportation. Sidecar has also hired a new head of policy, David Phillips. He used to be AOL's lawyer back when AOL had some of these problems, when the internet was more in its infancy. Lyft co-founder John Zimmer said that they beat CPUC's driver requirements for charter party characters. Saying, what's really the problem here? He says, we perform background checks, we perform criminal records checks, DMV records, in-person interviews, we give driver training. What's the problem?
Is it just that they don't register as charter party? They don't file the proper paperwork?
Correct.
Ugh.
That's exactly what it is. It's innovating on a system that already exists, and the CPUC is saying, well, you just forgot about us. I mean, we're the policymakers here. You can't do that. Now, of course, Uber, as I mentioned, works differently, but the CPUC is fining Uber as well. Uber says, listen, we have our own regulation. We are properly licensed with the PUC. That's the California Public Utilities Commission. They say we've got insurance for our drivers. We have safety checks. We perform equipment inspection, drug and alcohol testing. So if you're going to regulate us, then that's just double regulation. I mean, what more do you want from us? Because, again, we're a new company and we operate a little bit differently than the taxi drivers that have been on the road a long time. Uber also is in more hot water. The Court of Madera-based attorney named Gary Oswald filed a class action lawsuit against Uber yesterday. The suit says that San Francisco operations are illegal, that Uber is allegedly acting as a taxi cab company while sometimes denying this fact in order to avoid all regulations governing taxi cab companies. Uber says that they will fight this to the death. They didn't say to the death, but they're going to fight it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it does. I do sort of get the wording that came from that attorney that says, for the most part, Uber says we're a taxi company, but better. That is how I think consumers see it as.
That's the pitch.
And that's why they like it. But they do operate in a completely different way.
Do we need a constitutional amendment to make it legal for people to carry you around, though? I mean, this just sounds like a nightmare of regulation.
Just compliance attorneys, right? I mean, this sounds like a compliance issue, right? That they need to work out how not just their branding and their perception is, but how they. I mean, Uber in New York City is a million problems, but I think a lot of these are services that do innovate. I think these are services that are in high demand, and that just compliance, there's regulations, and hiring a good attorney can help you figure this out.
I'm kind of curious what laws Uber and these companies actually take advantage of as if they were a taxi company, and then say they don't want to pay a certain fee.
What's the benefit?
Yeah, if they're taking advantage of the benefits, they have to pay in. But the thing is, this definitely seems like a situation where the current laws just don't fit the current scenario. So this is going to take a bit to figure out where do they belong? And how exactly are these companies using the laws to their advantage anyway?
Where have I seen that? Oh, right. Everything that's happened on the internet so far.
Exactly.
Every business. And we don't remember it, but there was a lot of controversy over selling things online back in the late 90s when the dot-com boom started to happen. A lot of regulations were bandied about who could get away with what, and a lot of brick-and-mortar retailers were trying to stop people from selling stuff for cheap online. All right. It is time for the randomizer.
Yay.
Randomizer.
And you know who has a solution to all this regulation? Bob Dole does.
4 more years. 4 more years.
40 years ago. I saw this on, where did I see this, actually? It was on avclub.com, pointing out that the Dole Kemp 96 website is still up.
Awesome.
It's a little slow and not everything works, but if you go to dolekemp96.org, you can read where Bob Dole stands on technology and internet issues. Bill Clinton wants to put Big Brother in your computer, but Bob Dole will protect the constitutional liberty of internet users. Actually, reading this it brought a tear to my eye because these are all the issues that have been decided since then, and it's kind of sad in some ways how they've been decided. Did this bring a little nostalgia to your eyes, Mr. Patterson?
Well, anytime I see campaigns of old, I get a little nostalgic. I think what you said is actually very interesting, and I'd love to, take little hash marks and say, all right, these are where the campaigns and where policy thought we were headed. Here's where we ended, and maybe we can forecast the future a little bit by saying, all right, 96. That's a nice yardstick. We can look at how we have that. It can also help us from flipping out. Well, it can't help the internet from flipping out over small issues, but it can help us from flipping out over small issues by saying, okay, we were really freaked out about this in 96. We're okay. It's okay.
Now, if you're wondering, was there some weird office of Dole Kemp 96 that is left untouched by time where the web server is still running? It's the website is actually presented for educational purposes by forpresident.org, which really does their best to sort of preserve all of the campaigns going back to 1960. They have bumper stickers and materials, and they've preserved a bunch of the websites. It's actually kind of a fun thing to go look around.
So you're not the only one to save all of those bumper stickers, Tom.
I don't have to anymore. I got this, so I can clear out the garage finally. If you're not tired of presidential politics
Look,
already.
it's Facebook's design already. Look, it's got the blue bar on the top. There's a 3-column design. It's all been done.
Yeah, it's all been done before. Exactly.
It looks like Pinterest.
Forpresident.org.
Kind of makes sense. This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Squarespace.com. If you're the next Bob Dole, or maybe you want to be the next person to win an election, you might want to be starting on your website now. Any kind of website is available at Squarespace. Great for a blog, online portfolio. Squarespace has launched a new content management system called Squarespace 6, which makes it easier than ever to use one of their beautiful designs. They've got all new templates based on HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, and JSON, and they are making great website experiences that are reliable 24/7. You can take advantage of their support, and when you add an image to the site, 7 different versions are created, so the correct size loads for the device, and your site always looks professional. There's a new page builder tool called Layout Engine. It lets you customize your page in just seconds by adding some blocks of content here and there. Much more WYSIWYG than it's ever been. The new Squarespace gives you social media integration that's improved, automatically import, sync, and publish with just a few clicks. There's so many things we could sit here all day talking about the new features and the things that I take advantage of with the Squarespace sites that I run. But you don't have to listen to me yammer on. Go try it out for free. Sign up for a free account. No credit card needed. Just try it out. Start building your website right now. There's no risk to it. You don't have to give them any information except the name of a website. Then, if you decide to purchase it, use offer code TNT11 and get 10% off your first purchase on new Squarespace accounts. That includes monthly and annual plans. And don't forget about free domain registration with annual plan subscriptions. That's squarespace.com. Use that offer code TNT11. And we thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. It is time now to pull down the big old wall calendar.
Hey,
Hey, what's happening tomorrow? Oh, I know. Tomorrow, AT&T is going to start selling the Asus VivoTab RT for $500. The keyboard dock is included for a limited time if you're interested. Also tomorrow, HTC's One X Plus and One VX, God, they have so many One products, are set to arrive on AT&T. And also tomorrow, this is very exciting, Desert Bus for Hope 6 starts.
Yay.
This was started in 2007 by the internet sketch comedy group Loading Ready Run. It's video gameplay to benefit charity. Has been doing it for 6 years. Desert Bus has raised more than $825,000 for Child's Play, which is the most successful charity gaming marathon on Earth. Amazing stuff, and that starts tomorrow as well.
Have any of you played Desert Bus before?
I have watched the live feed of others.
It's kind of crazy. I have it emulated on my PC.
Do you?
And boy, is it fun.
Oh yeah, no, guys, you should go out and download it and play it. Hours of fun driving.
Hours and hours and hours.
Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Got a voicemail with Brian weighing in on the whole Facebook advertiser controversy we've been talking about. Go ahead, Brian.
And given a call about the Facebook Mark Cuban story from yesterday. Now, the one thing I don't like about this story is Facebook doesn't seem to mind all the free advertisement they're getting from companies. You see Facebook logos on pizza boxes, movie posters, even in television commercials, and Facebook isn't paying a dime for any of these. Why should these companies keep promoting Facebook for free when Facebook is trying to charge them for having their posts go out? Thanks, guys, and have a great day.
That's a fair point, but then Facebook's not making them promote Facebook for
Nobody
free.
said you have to put a Facebook logo on your pizza box.
Yeah, it's like having a presence on the internet. It's like somebody's promoting the internet when you put a website up there. Ooh, big difference there.
AOL keywords went away for a reason.
We got an email, another Facebook email from Steve in Australia. Hi, guys. Following on your discussion about Facebook charging to deliver brand posts to users' timeline, the big issue here is that they are double dipping. In the past couple of months, I spent around $800 on Facebook ads to gain about 2,700 new likes on one of my pages. I now have to pay again to get those followers to see my posts. This is unfair. If I buy ads that lead to likes, then those likes should automatically get my posts because I've already paid. If the likes are organic, then fair enough paying to reach them. It's one or the other, but not both. Interesting viewpoint, Steve.
I mean, maybe this new Facebook Pages system that Sarah was talking about earlier will alleviate his concerns.
Got another email from Brian. This is in regards to a recent story about us saying, are voice language translators really going to work? They kind of have to be perfect. Who really needs it? He says, while watching a foreign YouTube video this morning, it struck me. Video services, movies, and TV could all use the tech to automatically translate or dub video or audio, especially since I think the article said that the process tries to emulate the speaker's voice, which is true. I mean, based on the video that I watched, the speaker's voice is not that well emulated. Isn't this just sort of like dubbing, though?
Yeah.
Which doesn't always work, and you're like, I wish they would just give me the subtitles because it doesn't translate that well.
YouTube's speech-to-text automatic captioning is quite hilarious. I can't imagine the hilarity that would ensue if they put an actual dubbing of translations into place.
Well, but if it was a lot more precise.
Yeah, then it wouldn't be as fun.
If it worked, it wouldn't be as jarring when you watch like a foreign version of The Simpsons. You're like, why does Homer sound so weird? But if you could have it in Spanish.
No, I want it to be hilarious. All right, that's it. Dan Patterson, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's always good to have you. Let folks know what you're up to, what's going on at CoPoint, and any of the other projects you got going on.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful to be here as always. So, I make podcasts and radio shows, and we have a new season of CoPoint shows coming up, including I have a bunch of girls who all write and work for Tor. I'm sure everyone in this audience knows Tor Publishing. I grew up with it. I'm sure you did. And we're shooting a show tonight, so you can get a little taste of the new website at wire.copoint.com. It's not done. We'll flip the DNS on Monday, but man, I'm excited that I don't have to think about politics for a while and can focus on making podcasts about geeky stuff like comic books and Tor.
Copoint. That's KOPOINT.com. Thanks again, Dan. And thank you, folks, for submitting stories in our subreddit. TechNewsToday.reddit.com helps us pick our stories. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, TNT@twit.tv. And you can give us a call. Leave us a voicemail. Just pick up the phone. You can send it to us as a wave or an MP3 attachment, too. But you can also just call 260-TNT-SHOW. That's our Google voicemail box. And leave us a message there. Friday is tomorrow. That means Darren Kitchen. We'll see you then.